several days ago, Doug Ford said he stands shoulder to shoulder with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, which shocked the bejeepers out of so many conservatives I know. I haven't heard a similar statement from Justin Trudeau about Premier Ford. But what I'm getting at, Jim, is that since Doug has publicly stated he is simpatico on how the Prime Minister handled the situation, what in the world is he so spooked about?
The federal government was justified in using the Emergencies Act to lift the occupation of downtown Ottawa. Well, we have some of the top officials with the OPP testifying, and yes, I stood shoulder to shoulder with the Prime Minister. These folks were, camping out, everything from whirlpools, disrupting downtown, disrupting the lives of the people of Ottawa. We've worked collaboratively with the mayor and the Prime Minister over at the borders. They were holding up $1 billion of trade every single day, getting across our borders. We were getting phone calls from governors. It's unacceptable. Myself and I know the Prime Minister believe in free speech. And if you want to protest, protest. If you want to come down to Queen's Park and do cartwheels. But if you disrupt the lives of the people of Ottawa every single day, disrupt the lives, the economic flow across our borders, I have zero tolerance for it. Thank you.
Well, the only shocking thing about that is if you think that the Doug Ford PC party is conservative, if you think they're a bit better than the Justin Trudeau Liberals, then you'd be shocked. And maybe some of those conservatives that were shocked had their head in the sand for the last 4 or 5 years. I don't know. But they're not. They're not any better. They're liberals. They're called the PC party, but they're progressives. They're liberals. And he's been in simpatico with Justin Trudeau for at least 4 years now. And not just in simpatico and shoulder to shoulder. He's actually leading the parade. I mean, when the Emergency Act and the emergency order came out, you remember, Dave, it was Doug Ford that did it first. He came out the day before. He condemned the protesters, called them names, vilified them. He really set the stage and he rolled out the red carpet for Justin Trudeau to do the exact same thing at the federal level the next day. And one thing that the convoy did was it took away a lot of the spotlight on the Ford PCs, because before we had the international travel mandates by Justin Trudeau, most of the mandates that people were upset about in Ontario were at the provincial level, at the hands and total responsibility of the Doug Ford government. And that's in terms of repeat lockdowns, mandates. And Justin Trudeau was just spending like a drunken sailor, but he wasn't responsible for those mandates. The protest allowed a lot of the focus to shift to Justin Trudeau and away from Doug Ford. So he enjoyed that kind of shift, and he rolled out the red carpet, did his buddy Justin a favor, and then he escaped it for a few months here. No one really questioned the Ontario government. Why haven't you applied for standing, to get standing like the government of Alberta, the government of Saskatchewan have at the inquiry, to hold the federal government and Justin Trudeau's feet to the fire? No one really asked those questions. And until now, when he was summoned to go and testify, and he's using all the taxpayer money he can, all the legal tools at his disposal, rushing to go to court to say, no, don't ask me what I know because I don't want to tell you. And it's a terrible look. I mean, even some of the mainstream commentators are saying it's a terrible look, because what it reveals is he has something to hide. And I think it's more than just, he's hiding more than just the fact that he's walking shoulder to shoulder than Justin Trudeau. Number one, he doesn't want the spotlight to shift to him and all the mandates and the lockdowns that his Ontario government put in place for 4 years. But there's more to that. There's more there. And I think we're just scratching the surface.
And Jim, I think you're right. I tend to agree with everything you just said there. But let's look at his excuses. I mean, the crux of his argument, I remember more than a week ago at Queen's Park, he was stating, and I'm paraphrasing here, but this is a federal inquiry. It's about something that happened in federal jurisdiction. It is a federal matter, et cetera, et cetera. Well, then, Jim, if this is all about federal entities and people testifying, then why have we been listening to the testimony of Ottawa Police Service officers, past and present? That's a municipality police service, not a federal police service. So in that respect, does this whole idea of a jurisdictional argument, meaning that it's a federal matter, does that make sense to you?
From a purely legalistic, like if you're going to ask me legally, he's kind of using weasel words to get out of it. It's true that the inquiry is not mandated to look into what the provincial government did, right, with their state of the emergency and the law they passed to deregister or rip away the license of, what was it, like over 30 trucking companies that were at the protest got deregistered from an order from the Ontario government, from a minister. It didn't even go through legislation. And so the inquiry is not going to look into the provincial emergency that was called by Doug Ford and the powers that he exercised. So that's true. But what they're summoning him for is not to ask him what he did as premier in terms of provincial laws. They want to know what was his interaction with the federal government, any discussions he may have had with the federal government and police, you're right, city police, provincial police, the OPP, in terms of how to handle the situation. And this, we heard from Chief Slowly, or the former chief, just I think it was today or yesterday, that he said this is a political problem that requires a political solution. Well, as Premier of Ontario and the man responsible for most of the lockdowns and mandates, did he try to do anything to bring a peaceful resolution to the protests in Ottawa? Or did he just hide and then come out and call them names and maybe even make the situation worse and try to justify the emergency that his buddy Justin Trudeau called? So those are all the important questions that have to be asked. And he's using kind of like this excuse from a legal perspective. It might work. It might work. He might actually win the argument in court. He's got all the money he needs to hire all the lawyers to go in court in a rushed basis to fight this. And it might work. He might get out of it. But politically, the consequences are really high here, that he's trying to use every tool at his disposal to avoid talking about it and avoid speaking under oath. Like, that's what we're talking about here. He doesn't get to lie when he's at the inquiry. He's got to testify under oath.
What you just saw was an excerpt from my nightly show, The Ezra Levant Show. Every weekday, I do a monologue. Usually it's about half an hour. Then I interview an interesting guest, and then we read my hate mail or my fan mail, whichever is more fun. It's only available behind a paywall, though. That's how we pay our bills here at Rebel News. We don't take a dime from Justin Trudeau. But the good news is it's only $8 a month, about half the price of Netflix. And in addition to my nightly show, you also get weekly shows from 4 other friends here at Rebel News. So you're getting 36 shows a month just for $8. I think it's worth it. And even if you're not quite sure, do it anyways, because we rely on viewers like you to keep us free and independent. I promise you I'll never take a dime from Trudeau. Just go to rebelnewsplus.com and click subscribe. Thanks.